A person is made up of what they eat. That's a phrase often repeated by healthy eating enthusiasts and nutritionists. This is quite a controversial statement, but it's hard to deny that culinary preferences and eating habits can say a lot about a person. In this sense, studying the menus of rulers and dictators is of great interest not only to the curious layperson, but also to historians and even psychologists. In today's video, we'll take a look at the favorite foods and gastronomic habits of the dictators of the past century. Moreover, I will tell you about the most notorious figures of the past. You will learn, for example, why Hitler gave up meat, which dishes Stalin loved most at his feasts, what Boris Yeltsin always ordered for breakfast, and what terrifying processed foods were kept in the refrigerator of the African dictator Idi Amin. Let's begin. Adolf Hitler, vegetarianism and female tasters. The German dictator Adolf Hitler famously was a vegetarian. He himself never explained his refusal to eat animal products, although most likely the reason was serious digestive problems. It is known that Hitler suffered from severe constipation and flatulence throughout his life. Hitler's chronic flatulence led him to bring the quack doctor Theodor Morell close to him. This swindler literally stuffed Hitler with dubious medications, one of which contained an extract from the feces of Bulgarian peasants. Switching to a plant-based diet was probably an extremely difficult step for Hitler, since the dictator's favorite dish was stuffed pigeons, as he himself repeatedly stated. By the end of the war, Hitler had completely switched to vegetable broths and purees, although some biographers claim that he often secretly indulged in ham without his close associates knowing. And like most dictators, Hitler was extremely afraid of being poisoned, so he kept a whole staff of 15 female food tasters who would try his food beforehand. If nothing happened to them within 45 minutes, the dishes were served to Hitler. Joseph Stalin, Satsivi, and hours-long feasts. Joseph Stalin loved Georgian cuisine, which of course is not surprising. How can you not love Georgian cuisine if you're not Georgian? The best chefs in the country prepared shashlik for him. Not a single feast at the General Secretary's dacha went without it. However, the leader's favorite delicacy was satsivi, chicken meat with hazelnuts and spices. Stalin loved to host hours-long feasts at his dacha. He enjoyed getting his guests drunk and also openly mocking his comrades. The guests were forced to drink huge goblets of wine. They had to sing folk songs together and sometimes do the squat dance. Later, Nikita Khrushchev often complained that these gatherings at the leader's place, where an atmosphere of fear and crude jokes prevailed, caused great harm to his health. Tito, who was also invited to such dinners before his falling out with Stalin, recalled that he could only keep up with the leader's associates by secretly pouring out the drinks he was served into the sleeve of his jacket. Stalin's banquets were served by an entire team of chefs, because over the course of the evening they had to prepare dozens of different dishes using the most complex recipes. A few words about other Soviet leaders who ruled the country after Stalin. Khrushchev loved simple dishes. Borscht, pelmeni, vareniki, and okroshka. Among drinks, he preferred Ukrainian horilka with pepper. They say that one of Nikita Sergeyevich's favorite dishes was hunter's kulesh, which served as both the first and second course. Leonid Brezhnev loved to eat well. He also enjoyed lavish feasts. Once, doctors forbade Brezhnev to eat fatty foods, so a special dietary pilaf was created just for him. Gorbachev loved porridge made according to an ancient Russian recipe in clay pots. Yeltsin always had the same order for breakfast: whiskey, ice, and lemon. Boris Nikolaevich's favorite dish throughout his life was cutlets with mashed potatoes. Benito Mussolini, garlic and family meals. The Italian dictator Benito Mussolini shockingly did not like pasta. He didn't like carbohydrates at all, believing they gave him headaches and digestive problems. But he absolutely loved a salad made of garlic dressed with olive oil and lemon juice, and he ate it all the time. His wife Rachele suffered the most from the dictator's culinary preferences. She often went to spend the night in the children's room with the kids. As for his habits, Mussolini loved family meals. That's why the dictator always had lunch with his wife and their 5 children. He was very strict about his routine. That's why his family would wait for him sitting at the set table. Mao Zedong. There's no such thing as too much meat. Mao Zedong loved meat dishes. That's why he suffered from constipation all his life and paid close attention to his bowel movements. Comrade Mao also had a strong weakness. He had a weakness for spicy red peppers, which he ate whole. At the same time, the great helmsman repeatedly stated that he needed food not for pleasure, but to restore his strength. I eat a lot and I defecate a lot. That's what he wrote in a letter to a fellow party member during the Civil War. Many years later, during a visit to Moscow where he met with Stalin, Mao complained to members of the Chinese delegation that he was suffering from constipation because he couldn't get used to the Soviet toilets with their European-style flush toilets. Fidel Castro. Infernal coffee and turtle soup. The leader of the Cuban Revolution was a true gourmet, well versed in the culinary arts, and could cook quite well himself. Castro loved to eat. He enjoyed a wide variety and plenty of food. Biographers mention different favorite dishes of the Cuban leader. Most often it's turtle soup, a spicy and exquisite dish. In addition, his culinary preferences included spaghetti with various sauces, good cheese, a local dish made of rice, lobsters, and crab meat, and even the American hot dog. It can be added that Castro was an avid coffee lover. He literally couldn't live without this invigorating drink. He would drink a cup of very strong coffee almost every 15 minutes. Here is Fidel Castro's recipe for making coffee. Put 8 spoons of instant coffee into a cup, add the same amount of sugar, and then pour brewed Cuban coffee over it all. Saddam Hussein. Fried carp for the President of France. Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein was also a great gourmet who loved to eat a lot and eat well. He categorically rejected most Western dishes, preferring local cuisine. Even when his staff chefs prepared an ordinary steak, they called it Saddam-style steak to flatter the ruler. It is said that Hussein was obsessed with the neatness of the table setting, the portion sizes, and the freshness of the ingredients. He was supplied with freshly caught shrimp and lobsters. Saddam preferred olives grown exclusively on the Golan Heights. He demanded the highest quality lamb and veal without a single bit of excess fat. His particular weakness was camel milk, which was brought to his palace from Bedouin settlements. Hussein loved to taste fried fish, which he personally caught at dawn. The dictator had a weakness for Western sweets. For example, after his arrest, an almost empty box of Bounty chocolates was found in his refrigerator. And he also really loved quality street toffees. While in prison, Hussein developed a taste for another Western product, Mexican nacho chips. The Iraqi dictator knew how to cook and enjoyed it. When he was in a good mood, he would come to the kitchen and help the chefs. He said it calmed him down. During the war, he personally cooked for Iraqi soldiers. They say that Saddam was good at grilling fish over an open fire. Most often it was carp. Once he served this dish to the president of France, Jacques Chirac. And he liked the treat so much that later the Frenchman received half a ton of fish as a gift from his Iraqi colleague. Abroad, Hussein always ate only what was prepared by his personal chefs, out of fear of being poisoned. It must be said that he had certain reasons for his fears. In the late 1970s, someone tried to poison Hussein, and only the vigilance of a bodyguard saved his life. After that incident, food was always tasted by food tasters. This position was dangerous but very honorable. Muammar Gaddafi, camel milk and pasta. The Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi loved his native Libyan cuisine the most. Above all, the colonel valued the main national dish. Couscous. Muammar Gaddafi, like Hitler, suffered from flatulence for many years. But unlike the German Führer, the Libyan dictator simply didn't pay attention to it. Despite doctors' warnings, Gaddafi loved camel milk. The drink is healthy and nutritious but very high in calories. Gaddafi loved this drink so much that he took camels with him on foreign trips to always have fresh milk on hand. Moreover, the Libyan leader constantly offered it to his high-ranking guests, and not everyone liked it. For example, British Prime Minister Tony Blair, during his visit to Tripoli, avoided this unusual drink on the advice of his advisors. When meeting with his friend Silvio Berlusconi, Gaddafi was not picky and gladly ate pasta and various dishes made from it. The Libyan leader also liked Italian cuisine. Pol Pot, snake blood and potassium permanganate. Pol Pot is rightfully considered one of the most brutal dictators of the last century. During his rule, more than 2 million Cambodians were executed, died from forced labor or starvation. However, the dictator himself did not care much about the fate of his subjects and greatly enjoyed a variety of culinary delights. For example, he liked to treat himself to cobra stew, as well as roasted wild boar or venison. Cobra meat was stewed in a pot with lemongrass and other spices. The dictator also consumed raw snake meat as well as fresh snake blood. Pol Pot loved fruits. He also drank Chinese wine and brandy. He didn't refuse foreign delicacies either. Oysters, duck eggs, Japanese cookies, Swiss cheese, freshly squeezed orange juice. This is just a small list of what regularly brings V из-за границы. At the same time, a terrible famine was raging in Cambodia. People ate everything they could find: rats, locusts, grasshoppers, crickets, worms, red ants, and their eggs. Frogs were wrapped in banana leaves and baked over coals. It was real hell. Pol Pot, like many other dictators, was very afraid of being poisoned, so all his food was pre-treated with a potassium permanganate solution. If he felt even the slightest bit unwell after eating, the cook could easily lose their life. Nicolae Ceausescu, lasagna and golden spoons. Ceausescu ruled socialist Romania from 1965 to 1989. He was also extremely afraid of poisons, so he never ate food that hadn't been properly checked. This often led to diplomatic scandals. For example, in 1978, Ceausescu and his wife arrived on a visit to the United Kingdom. They had an official dinner planned at Buckingham Palace with Queen Elizabeth II. When the dish was served, Ceausescu, in front of everyone, demanded that his servant taste the prepared food, which was a clear insult to the hosts. Nicolae Ceausescu's favorite dishes were vegetarian lasagna with egg, steaks with tomato and feta salad, and jellied carp. Nicolae Ceausescu himself was concerned about his health and appearance. He tried to stick to a balanced diet and never ate chocolate. After lunch, he liked to lie down for an hour or two. If Ceausescu didn't like something, he could easily throw the food from his plate onto the floor and stomp on it with his feet. The dictator wasn't shy about such antics even at diplomatic receptions. At the same time, the ruler of Romania still kept some simple village habits. He could eat food with his hands and then wipe them on the table. In the 1980s, a ration card system was introduced in Romania. The streets were filled with lines for butter, meat, bread, sugar, and milk. Chicken eggs were in extremely short supply. It was impossible to get them for several months. At the same time, the Ceausescu family denied themselves nothing. At the table, the couple used gold spoons and forks. They ordered expensive yachts and decorated their palaces with paintings by famous artists, but it ended badly for them. On December 25, 1989, Ceausescu and his wife were executed by firing squad. Kim Jong-il dog meat and fugu fish. Tyrants are not only afraid of being poisoned, but also try in every possible way to prolong their own lives. That's why many of them want to eat only organic food. Чистыми продуктами. Kim Il-sung, the first dictator of the North Korean Kim dynasty, demanded that every grain of rice be hand-picked, all of the same size, color, and texture. By his order, an institute was created whose employees dealt exclusively with the issue of prolonging his life. The dictator's favorite foods were shark fin soup and dog meat soup. Kim Il-sung believed that these dishes increased potency and generally improved health. The ruler's favorite drinks were Hennessy cognacs. Kim Il-sung's grandson, the current leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, went even further. He maintains entire teams of specialists who obtain the dictator's favorite delicacies from all over the world. Sturgeon caviar, Thai mangoes, live lobsters, Japanese rice cakes with mugwort. And this was happening while there was famine in North Korea and people were almost eating grass. But this fact doesn't really bother Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un even has a personal chef who specializes in preparing fugu fish. This is a very complicated Japanese delicacy, and if it's not prepared correctly, it can be fatal to the person eating it. They say the leader likes the fish to be so fresh that it's still twitching in his mouth. Idi Amin, fast food and human flesh in the refrigerator. Idi Amin is the former president of Uganda who created one of the bloodiest regimes on the African continent. This already speaks of him as an extraordinary figure, since the competition in Africa was unusually fierce. During his 8 years in power, about 300,000 people died in the country. Idi Amin loved to indulge himself with roast goat and millet bread. He could also eat up to 40 oranges a day, believing that they increased his potency. However, the dictator had other curious culinary preferences. He was a cannibal. Amin ate his opponents, keeping their bodies in a refrigerator at his residence, where he received unsuspecting foreign guests. Even after his political career ended and while he was in exile, Amin tried in every possible way to deny the accusations of cannibalism. However, he was not always successful. For example, once he said, "I don't eat human flesh, it's a bit too salty for my taste." When he was living out his later years in Saudi Arabia, he ate exclusively fast food from KFC and also indulged in his beloved oranges. Вместо заключения. Dictators should have been left in history long ago. But unfortunately, we live in a time when, 100 years from now, someone will make a video about the dictators of the 21st century. Who do you think will be in that video? Goodbye, everyone.